Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. My name is Melissa and my channel is all about psychiatric drug withdrawal, reactions, and recovery. I myself had a very long and painful journey of recovery, mostly from SSRIs and benzodiazepines, but I also did in the short term take anticonvulsants and antipsychotics. If you're interested in learning more about my story, you can check out my website, which I will link in the description of this video. I also have made videos about this, so my whole journey as well as my reinstatement journey, and there's a lot of detail in those videos if you want to check those out. I also offer one-on-one supportive coaching for those who are interested. I have a free 15-minute consultation, 30-minute calls, 60-minute calls, and I offer them at lower rates than other places you might find online. I've also put together 4-session packages for those who might want to meet a little more regularly at a further reduced rate. So I will leave the link to my online booking calendar in the description, as well as my website and also my email address if you just have a single question to ask me. So this video today is going to be about the problem with daily tracking. So there's a few reasons why I'm making this video. The first one is, if you're familiar with some of the main forums, specifically survivingantidepressants.org, they will often tell you that first of all, you need to write your drug signature or your drug history in your signature, and then they'll often ask you to track your symptoms. And so I've seen this in people's threads where they get into very, very detailed tracking. Sometimes it's every hour, every half hour, and they've just got all these lines listing everything that they ate, drank, did, all of their symptoms, everything that was going on in that day. And I realize I understand the logic, I guess, behind doing something like this, but I want to talk about the problem with this based on my own experience, those that I talk to. So it's good because they're looking for, or they want to see sort of what's going on in your day that might be creating symptoms or that might be causing a problem. I did this early on in my journey, and recently again, if you've watched some of my older videos or some of my more recent older videos where I talk about how I had COVID for the first time about 6 or 7 weeks ago, and I broke out in rashes on my body, and I self-diagnosed with eczema or eczema, wherever, depending on where you live, and I started going down all the rabbit holes of those conditions because I've never had skin problems in my life. And all of the coaches online, or some of the coaches online, will say you need to track everything. You need to track all that you're eating, all that you're drinking, your stress levels, your activity levels, when you're having a flare up, It's very similar to what they're asking you to do on these drug forums. And so I started doing this for my rashes, and then it quickly took me back to where I used to be with drug withdrawal and when I used to symptom track like obsessively. And it can become a huge obsession. And the problem with that is if you're having something where you're obviously having issues with over, consecutive days or a long period of time, and you're really seeing patterns, that's one thing. Like, say you refuse to give up caffeine and you're noticing every single time you have your coffee within 2 hours your symptoms are spiking. That's good. You want to know those types of things. But if you're having, spikes and, windows and waves all over the place, you can quickly make associations and your brain will tie things together that aren't necessarily connected. So I've made videos about this, about waves. I don't personally believe that waves need a trigger. I think it's just how the nervous system recovers in a waves and windows pattern. And so if you're doing all of this symptom tracking and your symptoms are all over the place, you can be making all these associations. Say like food triggers are a big one, and I'm not saying that food can't trigger things. Absolutely, it's real, but you also can be just tying things together that aren't. So I have celiac disease, and I had it undiagnosed for like 10 years, and again I was tracking symptoms and trying to make connections, but food intolerances can take 72 hours to show up. So if you're having a spike in symptoms today at 3 o'clock and you're reading through everything you ate, drank, and exposed yourself to chemically, every stressor, you can start connecting things, and then your world gets really, 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 really small. It can exacerbate agoraphobia, it can exacerbate eating disorders, obsessions, OCD, monophobia, all of the things that are very real, and it definitely can be a part of drugs and drug withdrawal, but it also can become this dangerous thing. And if you know anything about the brain retraining programs, I'm not going to list them all here. There's a lot of different ones out there. People ask me about them all the time. Limbic system retraining, brain, DNRS, I guess there's one of them. And I haven't done DNRS myself, but I've really looked heavily into other programs. And a lot of them, one of their sort of pillars is you cannot talk about symptoms. So I think if you're tracking your symptoms, it just gives them more and more and more power. Obviously, they're incredibly intense and acute. They're incredibly real. I had symptoms, all kinds of symptoms from going off my SSRIs too quickly, had no idea there was a withdrawal syndrome, discontinuation, no clue. And I was having very real symptoms. And I didn't even know that it could happen from coming off drugs. So obviously I'm not talking about everything being in your head. That's not what I'm implying here at all. I'm just saying that you're already in such a stressful state when you're coming off these drugs or experiencing adverse reactions. You don't want to contribute to that by just like becoming obsessed with your symptoms, becoming obsessed with putting connections together. What's causing this? What's causing that? I was starting to do that. I'm not going to lie. Like even with my rashes that happened since COVID, whether it's, MCAT, whatever is going on, I was just like, I have to start tracking things and notice when I'm itchier, when I'm not. My rashes have gotten a lot better, but they're still like, again, they're kind of window and wavy. And so I was starting to track everything, and it took me back to my early days of withdrawal. And I started to experience like this stress response where I'm like, no, like this is freaking me out. If I just had a piece of chocolate and now I'm having increased symptoms, my God, I'm never going to be able to have chocolate again. Not only can it become an obsession, but it can become a source of incredible despair for people. So, I mean, there's people who are down to eating like 2 foods. And again, I'm not saying you can't have reactions, but I really do believe, and I've seen feedback from other people who have recovered from these drugs say that those types of tracking and all of that is very dangerous for vulnerable people like us, because we already become afraid of almost everything. And so if you're, again, writing everything down so meticulously, I mean, even the moderators who are reviewing people's, they can't say exactly what's going on. I mean, everything that goes on with these drugs is very unpredictable. It's nonsensical in a lot of ways. Nobody even really knows what's going on in the body to cause all these symptoms. Why are we then tracking everything, like bit by bit by bit? I don't know. That's my personal opinion. Let me know in the comments if you've experienced something like this or if you find it helpful. I just think that it just can become a massive issue, and I think we should try to avoid it as much as we can. Now, I do tell people in my coaching, you should have some type of records. And the way that I explain it to how I believe it's the most beneficial is either writing something down in a journal, speaking into a camera like this just for your own records, or talking to someone close to you. And I'm not talking every day, every hour, every half hour. I'm saying, every once in a while, either when maybe your symptoms are really bad, maybe you're feeling a little bit better, and then you can say, this is what's been going on, or just for your own sake, because the recovery in this process is so slow and so nonlinear that a lot of people will say, I don't think I'm making any progress. But if you can look back to something 6 months ago and be like, hey, I'm able to go grocery shopping and I couldn't then, but I forgot about that. You have a record of it. And I think that's really important. But it's a fine line, like most things in this process of, you don't want it to become a source of obsession and increasing your symptoms because it's increasing your stress so much. And I'm not going to get into too much detail about this, but I'm very honest on my channel. I talk very openly about things, and I consider myself 90% recovered. When I did have COVID 6 or 7 weeks ago, it did bring back some of my tinnitus. I'm not going to lie, some of my ear ringing, it's not to a point where it's like really distressing. It's just something I notice. I'm like, hey, I can kind of notice my ears are ringing more now. And I know people who have no history of drug injury have tinnitus from COVID. So I was, looking up, and plus I have clients who have incredible distressing tinnitus. And so I found this guy on Instagram who claims he knows how to cure tinnitus no matter what the cause was. And so he offers a course at a fairly decent rate. And so I decided to purchase it just to see what he has to say. And I went through the course, and there's a book that goes along with it that I haven't received yet, and I guess it's much more like detailed, but I did go through the course, and he talks a lot about the things that I talk about on my channel. So it's doing things day to day and consistently that contribute to good health, that contribute to lowering inflammation, lowering stress hormones, and I'm not going to get into every detail. Maybe I'll make a separate video about this, but things like, getting out in the sun every day, going for walks, grounding, cold plunges. He talks about different diet things. He I shouldn't say pushes, that's not the right word, but advocates for getting, organ meats. And if you can't stand the taste of them, then liver supplements. And he talks about detoxing and different things that I've talked about in my videos. Again, I might make a separate video more about this if you're interested in what I learned from him. But I think the sort of general tracking and then doing all of these things consistently over time that help you, I think are what you need to be doing in this process. And again, I've talked about the difference between acute, subacute, protracted, and when it's best to do different things. You can check out my other videos if you want to learn more about what I have to say about that. But overall, I do think you need to be doing things that consistently every day contribute to your overall health, and stretching yourself, you nurturing your nervous system, but stretching it over time, to expose yourself to more and more things and sort of reconnect with the world, because this turns your world upside down. And also, general tracking I think is important so you can see your progress. And one more note about the, meticulous symptom tracking. Not only can it create an incredible amount of stress for you and make your world really small, it can also contribute to despair, because I've seen people where it's like, I can't figure out what's going on. I don't, or they'll be like, yeah, I'm reacting every single day to different foods. I guess I can't eat anymore, or I can't clean my house because I can't tolerate any chemicals. And again, there are real reactions, but I think if you're doing that, it just is adding to your stress. If you're just constantly writing down and symptom tracking every single thing. That's just my 2 cents. Let me know what you think in the comments. And I'll let you guys go. I hope, you're able to have a decent holiday season. I know the holidays can be really stressful for people, especially now if you're in this situation. But take care, and I hope you're able to enjoy a little bit of Christmas. And yeah, again, if you're interested in coaching or just having a free consultation, you want to chat, check out my online booking calendar in the description, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.